Welcome to the Creative Penn podcast. I'm Joanna Penn, thriller author and creative entrepreneur, bringing you interviews, inspiration and information on writing craft and creative business. You can find the episode show notes, your free author blueprint and lots more at thecreativepenn.com, and that's Penn with a double N. And here's the show. Hello creatives, I'm Joanna Penn and this is episode number 869 of the podcast, and it is Friday the 19th of June 2026 as I record this. In today's show, I'm talking to Mark Leslie Lefebvre, returning to give his thoughts on why print and in-person events are making a comeback for indie authors, why we keep selling books in person when the numbers rarely add up, measuring success by creative satisfaction rather than money, managing stress and the noise around AI, and we also talk about the pros and cons of licensing your voice clone through ElevenLabs. Now, I have now done this. Based on the conversation, I say I haven't done it and I have been thinking about it for ages, and talking to Mark and also to some other people, I decided to go ahead. So depending on when you're listening to this, you will now be able to use Joanna as a British middle-aged female voice on ElevenLabs, and more details on that soon, as I'm doing some other variations of the voice for different kinds of narration, because we all have different voices, and this of course is my conversational Joanna voice, but I also have other voices. So that is all coming up in the interview section. In writing and publishing and book marketing things, well, Tim Ferriss, author of the 4-Hour Workweek and other 4-Hour Body and all of that, put out a blog post this week called "Has AI Already Killed Non-Fiction?" Now, Tim is, of course, an outlier. He's been consistently selling a lot of books for many years, and he shares his data. So his numbers are a lot bigger than most authors, to be fair, but very interesting because he shows his sales falling off a cliff, starting in 2022, which, of course, is when ChatGPT launched, but accelerating in 2025 and even worse in the first half of this year. And it is not just him. He quotes Publishers Weekly as noting self-help had the steepest subcategory decline, with units down 26.3% year over year, with a few notable exceptions like religion, crafts and hobbies. He considers some of the potential things that might be impacting it, like post-pandemic drop on all book sales, which is definitely true. I talked to someone the other day who started self-publishing in 2020 and had the best years in 2020 and 2021. And many of us sold a lot of books in the pandemic. And then, of course, there was a drop-off, absolutely, for pretty much everyone. Also, TikTok attention spans, with more people getting into the short-form video rather than reading. But ultimately, Tim says, for things, prescriptive things like the 4-Hour Body, he gives a lot of health advice. And he says, in 2026, millions believe that the best interface is a free chatbot that has read my books and thousands of others that give you a personalized protocol in 15 seconds, adjusted for your body weight, your schedule, your injuries, and your aversion to cottage cheese. And if, like me, you have absolutely used ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini to help you with health questions, this is exactly one of the benefits of using AI, is that it's so personalized. So you can say, okay, here's this generic advice, tailor it to my situation. So that's actually super useful. He takes this further. He says, if how-to books are getting crushed because LLMs seem to provide faster, cheaper and more personalized advice, what is next on the chopping block? What is vulnerable to being replaced by AI-generated alternatives? How-to YouTube videos, prescriptive podcasts, online courses, newsletters, advice blogs, all the same logic applies. The original content doesn't exactly disappear, it just becomes raw material that most people never touch directly. And so Tim says, why am I not panicking? And this is why I wanted to cover this, because this is all true, of course, but he says, a confession, part of me finds this clarifying. I never got into writing because of unit economics. And I totally agree. I also find AI clarifying because all the busy work goes away when you realise that AI can do it for you. And if it can do it for you, it can do it for anyone. So what's the point? Or if there is a point, you can get AI to do it. You have to get very, very clear on what is worth doing. Interestingly, as I am recording this, I have my screen separated into different areas. And on one side, I have Claude Code building under 30-second audio snippets to post on YouTube and onto Facebook for my non-fiction books. So I'm getting it to actually do audiogram clips with Descript MCP and essentially doing work for me that I don't have to do. Now, personally, I'm not going to spend my time doing that, and I haven't, but I have many, many years of doing audio podcasts and doing audio books, many of which are narrated by me, by human me. All my non-fiction is narrated by human me. Not all of it, a lot of it, most of it, and more of it will be in the future. So I'm getting Claude to essentially make snippets that will go into YouTube Shorts, and some of them will go on Instagram, and all of that can now be automated. And the main reason I'm doing this is because I don't have to do it myself. The other thing is I could actually do an AI avatar of me and just do videos for TikTok or whatever, but I'm not going to do that. And so Tim says you have to get very clear on what is doing. He says, I'd rather write books for 10,000 people who are genuinely changed by them than crank out short form videos for 10 million people who forget about them within days or minutes. Now, I would say here a couple of things. One, you have to insert your own number, as many books will never sell 10,000 copies. So what is your number? And I think this is really interesting. So I'd rather write books for how many people who are genuinely changed by them. What about 1,000? Would you rather write a book that sells 1,000 copies? Or would you write a book for 100 people whose lives are changed? Or 10 people who are genuinely changed? Or what if you can change one life with your book? Is it worth doing? And then a bigger question. What if by writing your book, the life you change is your own? Which is what I basically realised after writing my book, Career Change. Not many people read that book, but it changed my life. And as many of us do, we work out what the hell we think by writing. We figure our own life out by writing. So if our book changes one life, our own life, isn't that worth doing? And then taking it further, what about the 10 or 100 or 1,000? What is your number for how many people do you genuinely want to change? And when is the smallest number? I think this is really worth thinking about. Back to Tim, he says, the market for information is collapsing into the chatbot. The market for transformation, for sitting with one mind at length on a subject it has bled for, might just get smaller, weirder, and more interesting. It's a return to basics. Find your 1,000 true fans. Yes, Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans makes its return. If you started off doing this well but have meandered, it's time to revisit it. Get very clear on who your 1,000 true fans are. Surprise and delight them. Over-deliver again and again. It's a great article, well worth the read. It's getting a lot of discussion in various places, but I think they are getting obsessed with the drop in numbers, which the same for website traffic, for example. I had to do a lot of work. In fact, Claude Code, again, did a lot of work for me on my website, which was getting hammered by bots. So it was able to put in a whole load of stuff there. But it's just so interesting to think about, well, how do we want to spend our time? Who do we want to reach with our work? That's one side of it. The other side is I hope this is not unexpected for you, because I have been saying this for years. Back in July 2019, episode 437, if you can believe it. So goodness, I guess that's almost 7 years now. I did a solo podcast episode on 9 ways that AI would disrupt authors and the publishing industry over the next decade. So essentially before 2029. I got a heck of a lot of stick for that episode. People who I respect telling me that I was essentially bonkers, that this was just not going to happen. Number 1 on that list was that non-fiction books, blog posts and news articles would increasingly be written by AI, which has absolutely been happening. And also at the beginning of this year, I said I was going to lean more into the transformation economy model, noting that prescriptive nonfiction and how-to information was pretty much easily delivered by AI with the benefit of that personalization. So I was really moving my own message into transformation and rejigged the Creative Penn into 4 transformational pathways from, for example, from not having written a book to holding your first book in your hands. That to me is a transformational journey through building confidence in your author voice, building an author business, and on the AI side, my Patreon now is all about transforming people from tech-phobic or fearful around AI to confident usage and at least embracing some form of AI assistance or curiosity. And as ever, I encourage you not to write just information. Personalise everything as much as possible. Personal anecdotes and lessons in non-fiction so it cannot be just another how-to book. And author's notes in your fiction about why the book comes from your life in some way. And of course, I've talked about this a lot, but memoir is of course the most personal genre. So you can go back and listen to that episode on 9 ways. I'll link to it in the show notes. That's episode 437 in July 2019. I still stand by, well, most of that is happening and some of it is more architectural, but certainly interesting in that I also said voice technology would replace human translators for mass market audio. And again, I still absolutely believe in human narrators for certain types of audio, but mass market audio is definitely happening with AI. Translation would be performed by AI for books and other content. Content would explode exponentially, and the AI augmented creativity would start to become a thing, all of which is happening. That episode was also where I coined the phrase double down on being human, which you now hear everywhere. But I definitely said it first in this AI context for authors. I also say in the episode, and I still stand by this, you cannot win on speed. When AI can write a screenplay in 2 minutes or generate a textbook or translate a book faster than you can read this sentence. But there is one thing you can do that AI cannot. Be you. Move away from the faster is better model to artisan craftsmanship. Stand out by having a unique voice. Don't write anything without giving it your own authentic stamp. Focus on local, imperfect, real connection with other humans. The next 10 years will bring an even bigger shift than we have seen so far as authors and publishers face the promise and the challenge of AI-enabled technology. I'm excited to surf the change and I hope you will join me on the journey. That's what I said 1st of July 2019. And I guess, we're almost at the 7 years. So hopefully long-term listeners are totally unsurprised by what Tim Ferriss has now said. And of course, I remain AI positive on balance. So this is not about saying, woe is us, all is ruined, not at all. It's continued encouragement to focus on writing what you love, connecting with other people who love what you love and what you do, and the 1,000 True Fans approach, which of course has always been my approach, a slow, sustainable approach. It is not sexy at all. It is not viral, but it's certainly, I guess, a long-term career. If you keep in mind who you serve, and this is the question I wanted you to think about today, because I've had a few people recently, I've talked to a few people, and they have been very much struggling with marketing. And when I ask them, well, who do you serve? They don't understand the question. Now, sometimes this has been talked about in the target market, but I think target market implies I'm aiming at them and I'm going to hit them and I'm going to sell to them. But to my mind, keeping in mind who we serve with our books, with this podcast, with our blog posts on Substack, with your social media, who do you serve? It's not about you selling books. It's actually about the person on the other side. How can you help them? If you want people to buy your books or listen to you, you need to keep in mind how you serve them. And that's how I do the curation of this introduction and the curation of the people I talk to. I hope you know that I'm genuinely trying to help you and serve you with your author career. And in turn, many of you pay me some money, either through with the Patreon or buying my books or listening to audiobooks or borrowing books or all of those things, or joining my webinars. All of those things are me trying to serve you, and in turn you buy things from me, and that keeps the nice circle going. So it doesn't need to be cringy or difficult. We don't need to hit the target market with marketing, advertising stuff. What we can do is genuinely try and serve people, and then hopefully enough of them will pay us that we can make a living. And that is Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans approach, which is, to me, still remains the most authentic way. So something to think about there. Who do you serve with your book, with your marketing, with episodes of podcasts you do, with anything? Who do you serve, and how do you want to reach them, and how does the book serve them? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. In personal news, I am basically just grinding on my master's dissertation, which all you academic writers will understand is pretty intense. I am up to so many footnotes, like a lot of footnotes, a lot of references, but it's really interesting. I'm thinking about a lot of things. And in fact, it has partly been my dissertation that convinced me to license my voice claim. Again, I will talk about this much more once I have finished. I will probably do a solo episode on that whole thing. It's about digital resurrection and our work being used after we die. Really interesting. So I will certainly talk about that at some point. But for now, my goal is to finish that draft by the end of June. And then I have lots of other things going on. But thanks for all your emails and comments and photos this week. Kay said about PD's interview, "This was fascinating. I love it when authors stay true to their creative sparks and don't get sucked into writing a single genre. There's so much more to explore." Absolutely, Kay. And lots of photos this week. I can't talk about them all, but Vanessa sent a lovely photo from Gladstone's library, which is an amazing place. It is essentially a library you can go stay in, and many writers go there for residencies and things. I've actually not been. It's about 4.5 hours drive from my house, which is just too long to go for a day. So I haven't been, but I do intend to stay there at some point. Vanessa said, "My room looked out onto the 700-year-old graveyard. Not something I would usually do, but I thought of you and took a walk and then went back again. I never realised how interesting it could be." I love this. I've had many messages over the years from people who have gone to visit graveyards because I encourage you to, and have all said how wonderful it has been for their creativity. It's very peaceful. So yeah. And if you're new to the show and you wonder why I do this, I'm pretty obsessed with the whole memento mori, remember you will die, and living well while we can, because it will end at some point. And to me, that is a life positive message. It's not obsession with death, it's obsession with life. So thank you, Vanessa. Charlie, also on the memento mori thing, sent a picture of a bench made from gravestones from an art gallery in Eastbourne here in the UK. Carlin sent a picture of a cemetery dating back to the Ottoman Empire in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And Pete sent a picture from the Japanese cemetery in Broome, Western Australia, where a large Japanese population worked in the pearling industry, which was mainly for mother-of-pearl buttons back then. The pearl diving was with heavy suits and air hand-pumped from the surface, a hazardous profession. There are more than 700 tombstones in the cemetery. And I loved seeing these pictures because I actually travelled through Broome back in 2000. I flew into Perth. This was after my burnout in 2000, after the millennium, and I went to Perth. I learnt to dive, and then I travelled up to Darwin through the outback over several months. I dived at Exmouth on Ningaloo Reef, which some of the most memorable dives of my life. And I remember Broome very much. Very interesting place. It has a huge crocodile farm with massive salty crocs at. So yeah, amazing place. Thanks for bringing back that memory, Pete. And in fact, if you want to hear more about my time in Australia, I have an episode on my Books and Travel podcast, which is called Outback Nights and City Days in the Lucky Country. That is on Books and Travel. You can search that podcast on your app, wherever you're listening to this. And I am currently planning, because now I have Claude helping me so much with doing snippets of things, I'm planning some extra episodes on Books and Travel where I'll be doing snippets on particular themes, and also some solo episodes on the travel behind my books. I really feel like using these tools to help us do the things that we've just put off because it just takes too much time is super useful. So yeah. Please leave a comment on the podcast show notes at thecreativepenn.com or on the YouTube channel at The Creative Penn. Or you can email me, send me pictures of where you're listening, or also reply and answer the question I asked you before. Email me, Joanna at thecreativepenn.com. I love to hear from you. It makes this more of a conversation. Today's show is sponsored by Kobo Writing Life, the self-publishing platform built by authors for authors, which I use to publish ebooks and audiobooks globally on Kobo. And yes, you can listen to audiobooks narrated by both human me and my AI clone on Kobo Writing Life. Kobo Writing Life is dedicated to empowering your indie career and helping you connect with readers worldwide. Your stories deserve a global stage. With Kobo Writing Life, international distribution is simple and seamless. Publish your ebooks and make them available in over 190 countries, ensuring readers can find your work whether they're across the street or across the globe. The intuitive dashboard helps you track international sales and pinpoint where your books are making the biggest impact. And on a personal note, I have now sold books in 180 countries through Kobo. It truly is the most international platform. So break down borders and build a truly global readership with Kobo Writing Life. My link is thecreativepenncom/KWL, which goes to a landing page with all my books in ebook and audio and useful episodes of the Kobo Writing Life podcast, which you can listen to wherever you're listening to this. This type of corporate sponsorship pays for the hosting, transcription and editing, but my time in creating the show is sponsored by my community at patreon.com/thecreativepenn. Thanks to the 11 new patrons who've joined this week, and thanks to everyone who's been supporting for months and years. If you join the community, you get access to my backlist videos, audio and articles on writing craft, author business and AI tutorials. This week I shared 5 practical author business use cases for Claude Code or ChatGPT Codex. The Patreon is a monthly subscription, the equivalent of buying me a black coffee a month or a couple of coffees if you're feeling generous. So if you get value from the show and you want more, come on over and join us at patreon.com, patreon.com/The Creative Penn. Right, let's get into the interview. Mark Leslie Lefebvre is the author of horror and paranormal fiction, as well as non-fiction travel and books for authors. He's also an editor, professional speaker, and the director of business development at Draft to Digital. His latest book is Stark Realities, Stacked Up Lessons Every Writer Needs to Know About the Business of Writing and Publishing. So welcome back to the show, Mark.
Oh, hey, Joe. It's always an awesome time chatting with you.
So you've been on the show lots of times over the years, but the last time was in September 2024 when we talked about selling books in person. So give us a bit of an update. What does your writing and publishing business look like at the moment, and how do you manage it alongside the day job and everything else you do?
Oh my God. Well, sleep is no rest for the wicked, maybe. I'll sleep when I'm dead. It's so funny. It was just this last weekend in Waterloo. I was at Waterloo Book Fest, and I had somebody come up to my table, another author from one of the other tables, and said, I heard you on the Joanna Penn, the Creative Penn podcast. And then when you mentioned something about Waterloo, I said, he can't be from Waterloo. And then when you mentioned the skeleton, I said, I know where he lives. So
That's scary.
So I love the fact that there's so many of your listeners all over the world, and that's usually how people know me. No matter what else I've done, it's like, oh, you've been on Joanna Penn's podcast. I'll say, yes, I have. It's really funny. The last time I was on the podcast, we were talking about A Book in Hand, which I was supposed to release that year. I just added another 5,000 words to it this morning. And
wait, it's still not published?
No, and it's so funny. I actually have the first 60,000 words of it with an editor right now, and I told her I would get her the rest of it, which I thought would be another 20,000 words by the end of June, but I think it's going to hit 100,000. Here's a weird thing that happened with this. This is trying to accumulate the life of book selling, as well as doubling down on doing in-person events in the last several years. And I thought I was going to have the book done in 2024. I ran into some issues where I didn't back it up, and the stupid backup copy on stupid Microsoft Office, stupid whatever that dumb drive is that they force everything to go to. It was an old version, and I accidentally overwrote the only version I had. which was
Okay, for everyone listening, Mark, how many decades have you been an author and a publisher? And like, how come you're still missing deadlines and still not backing up your work properly?
So this is a lesson that no matter how long you've been doing something, you can still make boneheaded errors. So if you, dear listener, have made mistakes, just know that this old guy who's been doing this since the mid 80s still makes mistakes like that. Don't beat yourself up. I probably did something worse. But anyways, that book I thought was going to be maybe 45,000 words. And it's going to probably be bigger than Wide for the Win in terms of close to 100,000 words. So, wow. But I think here's a lesson I learned in that, Joe, is a very important lesson, is I thought the book would be something. It became something else. And through my own experiences of doing more in-person events and book signings and library events, and also talking to awesome folks, Johnny B. Truant, Katie Cross, Todd Fonestock, and so many other authors that I know, seeing what Ben Wolf is up to and a whole bunch of different people who are doing in-person events and creating case studies for how they interact specifically with a bookstore or library or how they do in-person selling. I really think the book wasn't ready then. It's like the recipe wasn't ready. I still needed to play with some things. And I do sincerely have faith, since I did get it into the editorial process, I have faith that this will be the year the book actually gets released.
Well, I think, well, as you said, there's some really good lessons there around sometimes the book isn't quite ready. And I bought an early version from the story bundle,
Yeah.
which is how I got this book as well, actually. And there's another sort of tip for people, storybundle.com. You can go and find some great bundles there. But I was also thinking, as you were talking, maybe one of the reasons that this book, A Book in Hand about in-person events, has got so big is because that is a real trend in the community. It feels like indies, we moved, like back in the day, I said, I'm not doing print. No way. Like this was the early days of digital. Yeah, because print was really hard back then. It feels
Yes.
like print was hard. And so I was like, oh, and we've got all the advantages doing digital. So I'm just going to focus on that. It feels like the pendulum has swung, perhaps even more with the sort of ease of mass production of digital with AI. The sort of focus on print and in person is getting stronger and stronger. Do you think that is happening?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, I did print in 2004. It was really hard back then. I mean, so that's gotten easier. But I think there's a few reasons. I think one of the reasons is, yes, digital made it so much easier for indie authors to get out there and break into the community. But the reality is that print books still outsell ebooks in general, overall, despite the fact that indie authors can make 6 and 7 figures a year from selling ebooks alone on a single platform. So print has never really gone away. It was just never something indie authors attended to. They were in a different business than traditional publishers were in. And second, obviously I've got these gorgeous books that you've created on Kickstarter because I like the beautiful books. I've never stopped buying print books. I actually buy more print books. I read more because of audiobooks and ebooks, but I buy more print books, especially when I can get a nice signed copy. But then the other reason comes back to, again, your advice is just something I've been following for the longest time. And you've long been saying, and I do repeat this, and I do try my best to offer attribution to you every time I use it, is to double down on your humanity, particularly in this age of digital generation and the ability for even non-writers to be able to leverage tools to create content. I think it's so much more important for me as a creative who will never be able to catch up with the machines to exploit my humanity. And one of the best ways is, I mean, we both have digital voices of ourselves, right? There is a digital Mark Leslie Lefebvre voice that people can use, and I'm making money off because people are able to license it through 11 Labs. But when I'm there in person, so far, the holograms aren't good enough to fool people. I think I'm not just selling a book to somebody, but I'm wanting to create an experience where, I'm talking to the author and we're signing a book together and we're taking a selfie together. And for me, there's that tactile experience that's really enriching. It may not be something that lines my pockets as easily because the investment is more significant, right? For every $10 I make, it costs me $6 or $7, as opposed to an ebook, which the cost is amortized in a most beautiful way over millions of copies.
Yeah. Oh, there's a few things there. First of all, let's talk about that 11 Labs voice licensing, because as you say, I also have a voice clone, and like Bones of the Deep, the latest book, that is my voice clone. But
Yeah.
I haven't gone with the licensing, partly because you don't have control over what someone can do with it. So, for example, someone could create Nazi content or just content that
Mm.
I might not agree with in my voice. And so how have you got over that? Because part of me really
Yeah.
does want to license my voice and the other part doesn't.
Well, this is a great question, Joe, and I'm glad you asked it. And it's the same reason why I don't worry about people stealing my books and adding RM onto my ebooks and things like that. It's that I may as well make some money off it because let's be honest, you and I, our voices are out there. Thousands of
Mm.
hours of our voice, right?
Yeah.
In your podcast, my podcast, and various interviews we've done over the years. The technology exists for someone to make a copy of my voice anyways themselves. The tools exist, they can do it easily. So why not do it myself and at least make money? I'm actually getting money deposited into my account. Not a lot of money. It's usually only maybe it's $30, 18, something like that every week
Mm.
from and again I've taken a lot of my nonfiction books. I haven't had the time to do the recording myself as I like to do for my nonfiction books. So I can at least load those to 11 Labs, make my voice the default voice. But I mean, wouldn't it be great to be able to listen to my book in your voice? It would sound so much better because you can do that. When you listen to a book on that platform, you can choose my voice if you'd rather hear it in my voice, or you can choose Burt Reynolds' voice or some other folks who've licensed theirs. And again, for me, the whole concept of wide publishing has always been important to me. It's like, okay, it's another small revenue stream that's adding to my numerous revenue streams. And yeah, I guess that's how I've justified just licensing the voice. So if someone's going to
Mm.
do something with my voice that I can't control, they can do it regardless of whether or not I put it out there myself.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that is definitely a could happen, and neither of us are famous enough that that's likely to happen anyway. And I do kind of like the idea of people using our voices, say, for other books for authors, because that would make sense because that's
Mm.
where we fit in the kind of niche. But no, I will rethink that because I think that's interesting. And then I wanted to come at you also talked about print books.
Yeah.
Sometimes, there are easier ways to line your pockets, is what you said. And I think that's funny. So getting into the book, actually, this leapt out at me quite near the beginning. Why do we keep doing this when the math almost never adds up?
Oh, you know what? I have a perfect example of
Yeah.
that from an event I did a couple weekends ago in Burlington, Ontario. And it was an event where I think it was a $60 table fee. It was a new event. I was there. I believe I made $90 or $95 in sales. And so even
Mm,
after the costs of printing and all that stuff, I really didn't make money. I made my table back, which is always a good thing. But
mm,
there were a few encounters I had with people who were really excited to find my Canadian Werewolf series of books and just so thrilled to get started. And among the four of them, they bought one copy, but they were going to pass it amongst each other. And you know what? I was so thrilled and excited that they were okay. They bought a single copy, and I was like, well, the ebook is permanently free online. You don't even have to buy a copy, which, anti-selling. I just want them to read the book and enjoy it. But if they read it and pass it along and start talking about it, they could become readers for a long
mm,
time because it's an 8 book series with the ninth book coming out later this year. But also another encounter I had that day, well, actually, I made a few contacts with some bookish people that I was really glad I made that are going to lead to some really cool experiences in the next little while. But a woman and her teenage daughter came in and they were looking at my traditionally published books that I buy at a reduced price from a local bookstore and resell there. And they were looking at these true ghost story books that I had. And they were just like pointing, it was like, do you have that one? Yeah, I have this one. I have that one. I have that one. And the mother's like, well, she collects all your books and she wants to make sure she has them. And we had this conversation and she was so excited to meet me in person and
mm,
to get a signed copy of the book that experience was really such a vanity moment for me as an author. We're lonely. I'm a big loser. Nobody's buying my books. Like we always are down on ourselves. So that investment of time and energy in order to get that little pat on the back or that feeling of, wow, I really connected with someone who likes my stuff. They really, really like me. Those moments are really precious, and they're difficult to explain if you only look at the world in a financial way. And I guess I'm lucky enough, I'm very fortunate enough that I do have enough income from numerous streams, including the consulting that I do part-time. I do have enough income that it's okay if not every bookish endeavor I do leads to me having more money in my pocket at the end of the day, because I can have these authentic connections with people, which I think is one of the reasons why I'm a storyteller. Yes, it's the stories I have to tell, but it's also putting the story into somebody else's hands and eyes and heart and mind.
Mm. Yeah, you're very giving like that. You have that sense about you, whereas I'm just a curmudgeon in the
Oh,
corner.
that is not true.
It is generally like I don't do events like you do for readers. And I was
But
thinking
that
about
because it
this.
takes a lot out of you, though. It
Yeah, but
takes,
I it that doesn't matter. Why do I write? I write for me.
very good.
At
Okay.
the
I
end
like
of the
that.
day, like just
Yeah.
being entirely selfish about this. When people say, "Oh, what would if you won the lottery, what would you do?" And I'm like, "Well, I do pretty much what I'm doing now."
Yeah. Yeah. I just do this. Oh, yeah, of course. I would write more books.
Yeah, I would write more books. And so I think this is where I'm trying to get to for people as well is measuring success in a different way. So you were talking there about measuring success by how this girl loved your books and how you feel when someone says they love your books. And with Bones of the Deep, this thriller that I've just done, and I feel like I had the benefit of that book
Mm.
before anyone even read it. As soon as it was finished and I made a
Yes.
nice proof copy from Book Vault and I held it in my hand and I said, I made this and I'm proud of the
Mm.
story and I wrote the story and it's outside my head now. And I feel like I'm creatively satisfied in that moment. And then, of course, the Kickstarter was great and I love the fact that the books are going out around the world or whatever. But I think the happiest I felt was that moment of finishing and that kind of creative satisfaction of holding the book in my hand. You know what I mean?
100%. Joe, I cannot agree with you enough. I mean, I love so many aspects of writing. Yes, the connection with people is amazing, but I often say this when I'm doing my one-on-one consulting with authors is, focus on the projects that mean the most to you, those passion projects, because the process of writing and the painful rewriting and editing and all of the things you go through, when you finish that book, like you said, you hold it in your hands and it is a thing of beauty. It is a huge achievement. You've won. Whether or not you sell a single copy, you've won doing it. Everything else is gravy. The sales, the money in your pocket or not, or the reviews, the positive or not, or the people that say, "Oh my God, Bones of the Deep, thank you for writing this book. This is such a fantastic book. I'm so glad you introduced this into the world and into my life." Like anything beyond the creation itself, which is a pure joy. I love it so much. It's just why I get up at 5:30 every morning and write for hours before the rest of my day begins. Try to get stuff done before the rest of the world wakes up. I want to get the writing done first when I have the most energy to give myself to the page. And then the rest of the day is kind of gravy for me too.
And you talk there about giving yourself to the page, but also in this book, Stark Realities, you talk about the fear of truly being seen. So, what do you mean by that, and how do you manage that feeling?
Yeah, that is probably for anyone who has written anything, fiction, nonfiction, memoir in particular, obviously, since it's a little bit more closely tied to reality, is exposing yourself to the world. I'll never forget an interview I did with Canadian science fiction author Julie E. Terneda, who previous to being a fiction writer was writing biology textbooks, but her real passion was science fiction and
Mm.
fiction. And when her first novel came out, she said, it's like standing naked on the front lawn. And when you release a book, even a novel, because people look at it and they're going to judge you and they're going to read you. I remember early on, Joe, we knew each other through, I think, Twitter. We initially met and then interacted with and finally met in person at London Book Fair. And I think you and I have a very similar reaction when people know us as positive and upbeat and out there helping authors in the community, and then they read our fiction And they go, well,
Yeah.
well, Joe, you burned a nun alive on page one. Like, you know what I mean? Or Mark, what kind of, they're drinking from the skulls of dead people? What the heck is going on with you two? I think there's, people believe that they're seeing, well, we are exposing parts of ourselves in our fiction and nonfiction. That's a fear I embrace, but I also never get over, if that makes any sense. I mean, I write scary stories because I'm a big chicken. So maybe the entire process, maybe it's just a cheap therapy for me. Or not cheap
Mm.
because it's an expensive
Yeah.
pastime, isn't it?
It certainly can be. But no, I agree. I struggle with fear of judgment still. I think also because we do this in public, it's kind of coming back to the financial side of things, because we do a lot of this in public, and then people judge us also on our author businesses. So again, I mean, you could look at, let's just say again, Bones of the Deep, which just was on Kickstarter, and you could look at my Kickstarter and you could compare it to another author's Kickstarter for a fiction book and judge one or the other person based on numbers.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is because you and I have done so much in public. For me, almost 20 years, and for you, like 40 years or whatever. Like maybe 30 years. You're not that old.
Listen there, dearie.
Yeah.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah, get off my lawn. Well, those skeletons you have on your lawn.
Yes. They're no longer in my closet.
Yeah, they're not in your closet. But this, I wonder if that also plays a part of it, this sort of the pros and cons of doing this business in public as well.
Yeah, that is a part of it. I mean, one thing I try to be very clear about, because there's so much FOMO and there's so much out there about people thinking that everyone else is making $1 million from their books and I'm the only loser who's not. I try to be clear that I have never made more than a mid five figures as an author from my author earnings, ever. I haven't yet hit six figures. And one of the reasons I try to be transparent in sharing that is I don't want people to think that everyone else is a six and seven figure success story and they're the only one who only made $100 last year on their books. Because the reality is 90 to 99% of the people who are writing and publishing are not going to earn a significant amount of money. I realize I'm also very, very lucky that I've earned this much. And it's taken, I just shared this in a Substack post I posted yesterday, actually. It's taken me a long time. It was, 10 years of rejections before I got $5 for my first short story that was published in 92. It wasn't until 2001 that I finally made pro rate 6 cents US a word for a short story that ironically Julie Trineta bought for me back in the day. And I think it's, for me, I've been lucky that it's always been a long, slow slog. It's been a marathon. And I've never instantly sprinted across any dramatic finish line. I've had some really phenomenal moments doing a book signing in a Costco, walking into Walmart and seeing your books there. Even last night at the Burlington Public Library going, wow, they have 8 of my books here, 4 of my self-published books and 4 of my traditionally published books in 2 different sections. I was like, that's kind of cool. So I've had these amazing moments as a writer, but I've never had the blockbuster, I guess you could say, either the Brandon Sanderson or even the Dungeon Crawler Carl, Matt Dinneman kind of moments. But I still think I've had a very fortunate and lucky journey. And even if I wasn't making the money I was making, I would still be writing. And I'm sure you would be too.
Mm. Oh, yeah, for sure. And I actually think the thing that most of us would probably let go is the marketing. Like if we did win the lottery or whatever, we'd carry on with all the creative stuff, the writing stuff, the community stuff, and we just literally do no marketing at all.
Well, yeah, of course. or potentially say, oh, here, ad agency, you just, here's some
You
money,
do
just
it.
run, you do it, whatever. Let me know if it works or not. I don't care.
See,
I don't
that's
care.
a good idea. That's a much better idea.
Because at least I got the extra disposable income. I may as well, because I'm helping the world when my books are out there, because I know my books will help people, because there are going to be, I really honestly think that as storytellers, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, we're still storytellers. And what we're doing now, Joe, and what we do in writing and podcasting and all the things we do, the resharing things on social media, is really helping connect people, which I think is one of the most profound things we can do as writers. And I mean, that in and of itself, like the writing, is a reward.
Like you said, we met on Twitter when Twitter was what it was back in the day.
Yeah.
And I do very, very little social media now. But you just mentioned your Substack and you also have
Yeah.
your podcast, your Stark
Yeah.
Reflections podcast. So, how are you balancing what you put on each? Because I only
Mhm.
do this podcast now. I don't even blog, and I write books, obviously, and then I do the podcast. So, what are you doing differently on Substack to the podcast, and what part do they play
Mhm.
in, I guess, income and marketing?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. I realize that most people have never heard of me or read the things, listened to my reflections or read the things that I put out into the world. And I've been a longtime fan of reduce, reuse, recycle, my IP. So I have this, my podcast is not as long running as yours, but I'm in my ninth year and I've not missed a single Friday in the full 8 years that I've been doing this, or eight and a half, I guess, by now. And every week I reflect on what I learned from an interview, or I'll reflect on something you've posted and say, well, this episode is not an interview, but Joe said this last week. I'm going to talk about it. Well, I do the same thing. So sometimes, because the podcast itself takes a lot of work and I still
Mm,
do all of it myself, and I know I probably shouldn't, but I like doing it. So it's one of those tasks I enjoy. I also have reflections that aren't going to come out vocally, but might come out writing, because sometimes in the morning I'm not in the mood to write the novel or the nonfiction book I'm writing, but I'm writing some tangent. I just let the creative monster go. And I find that resharing, like I might have reflected on this for a couple minutes at the end of an interview, but I really want to expand upon it. And so I write the Substack article. So I try to kind of reuse some of that content. And I know that maybe someone's going to enjoy seeing that on a short video clip that I share on YouTube, or whatever the platform is. Someone else is going to listen to it on a podcast, wherever they listen to podcasts, and someone else is going to want to read it. And I know that it could be the same information, just shared in a slightly different way, and potentially get that out to other people. So for me, it's kind of part of that wide publishing mentality. I'm trying not to completely duplicate the work, although I am duplicating some of it. But I
mm.
know that I've said things, and I'll give you an example. Hey, Canadian listeners, if you have not registered for public lending rights in Canada, please put something in your calendar for February 2027, because the deadline's over. It was May 1st of 2026. Put it in your calendar for next year. And I even had somebody at this writers thing I was at this last weekend say, you mentioned something in a presentation you did for the Canadian Authors Association about public lending rights. And thank you, because now I get thousands of dollars a year from this. Just look up public lending rights. But I've been saying stuff about public lending rights for at least 10 years now. Every time I get my beautiful multi-four-figure check from them in February every year, I post on social media and remind authors to check it out. Now, I know it exists in the UK, and it
Hmm.
exists in 30, I think 36 countries in the world, just not the US.
Yeah, not
And
the
they
US.
don't have a program like this, probably because the big publishers and probably one of the authors associations think that libraries are cannibalizing book sales, which is not true. It's been proven time and time again. And that lobbying has prevented it from happening, where here in Canada, the Canada Council for the Arts and the Writers Union of Canada worked hard to make this happen. So anyways, you talk about something like public lending rights, and I feel like I must have said this so much people are sick of it, but every single time I mention it, someone goes, "Oh my God, thanks for saying that. I never heard it." And it's a good reminder, especially for folks like you and I. Well, we know the basics. We know what an ISBN is. We know, KDP Select means that you can't put the ebook on any other retailer or even sell it on your own website. We know all these things, but it's hard for us to remember that there are folks who are coming to this for the very first time and they've never heard it, even though we feel like, oh my God, I've said this till I'm blue in the face. And I think I got that from retail. When I worked in retail, I recognized that somebody's going to come in and ask for that blue book that Reese Witherspoon was talking about, or Oprah was talking about, or whatever. And you do your darn best to help them figure it out rather than mock them. And I try to take the same approach when people ask me those questions, because I'm trying to remember what it was like when I honestly did not know the answer, and having someone take the time to help me. And I guess I've been very, very lucky that I've had a lot of people take the time to help me. I mean, I'll never forget, God rest her soul, Nancy Kilpatrick, who gave a horror writer here from Canada who passed away a few years ago, gave me a blurb for my very first book in 2004 because she had acquired one of my short stories for an anthology she had edited. And I was trying to call my short story collection an anthology. And she very kindly took me aside and said, it's not an anthology if it's a single author. An
Yeah,
anthology.
I didn't know that until like last year. I
Yeah.
got that wrong as well. And well, there are lots of words like that. But then I want to circle back on, you didn't really
Yeah.
answer it earlier about the sort of time management, because you also just mentioned there YouTube on top of Substack and like all the things you do. You also have a day job at I know it's part time, right? You're at
Yeah.
Draft to Digital. You also do part time at a university teaching publishing, right, as well, and
Yeah.
you do all
Yeah.
kinds of things. How do you
Hmm.
manage your time with all of that stuff?
Well, I mismanage my time more than I manage it, Joe. That's God's honest truth. Now, fortunately, most of the things that I have that aren't scheduled, like scheduled to do this lecture at this time or scheduled to have this meeting at this particular time, with Draft Digital, most of my work is very flexible. I do not work a regular 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I used to. Well, I never did. I always worked way more. But I have a very flexible schedule, but every single day is a work day and every single day is a play day for me. So I'm very, very, very lucky. I do schedule in the very important things, particularly the things where somebody else is reliant upon me, like meetings and connections and stuff like that. And then I make the time first thing in the morning to get the writing done. Everything else is not as important. And it's part of I guess it's part of playing,
Mm.
like the social media sharing. And I don't look at social media as marketing. I just look at social media as another way to kind of connect with people, with other creatives, and with readers, potentially all 6 people who read my stuff. And I don't know. It's just, I probably could do a better, I probably could do a better time managing my time. I've tried several times over the years. I've tried to apt processes to make it better, but I consistently default back to my what I do. And so far, I guess I've been getting away with it. So I was like, do I want to waste more time trying to come up with a process, or do I just want to roll with it? Because so far I haven't killed myself doing it and I've been enjoying the journey. So, hey, if it ain't broke, or
Well, I think
if it ain't
you,
if it's ain't broke so much that you can't use it.
well, I think that's the point. If it doesn't feel like it's broken, I mean, because having known you for a long time now, I guess, and we work together. Obviously, we co-wrote The Relaxed Author, and you do work very, very differently to me.
Hmm.
And you definitely are a little bit more chaotic. Like I'm chaotic in some ways.
You're very generous, a little bit chaotic. Thanks.
Yeah,
That was
you're
generous, Joe.
you're chaotic in your work practices and
Yes.
scheduling and all that, which I couldn't cope with very well, because even though I feel like a part of my brain is very chaotic, the kind of creative side, I guess, can be quite chaotic, but
Yeah.
I think I'm actually quite controlling and very scheduled in my work practices. But as you say, for someone else on the outside, so it might feel to me like you have too many balls in the air, but if you don't feel that, then that's the way of working that works for you. And so this is another important thing, isn't it? You
Hmm.
can't adapt to what other people say your life should look like. It's what feels good to you.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And I know one thing about my procrastination tendency is panic and fear motivates me. So deadline, I have to get this into a publisher by this date. I have to get this manuscript to an editor by that date. I'm motivated by fear, and I'm afraid of everything. So I guess I'm always motivated. Yeah, that's what it must be.
But I also know when you hear the word deadline, you see, and I know a lot of people who do this, the deadline means you get it in on the deadline or the day before the deadline. To me, a
Yes.
deadline means I have it ready a month earlier.
Yeah, well, I love that. And, I've done that a few times and shocked myself. I actually had a pre-order up with the audiobook, the print, and the ebook up a month in advance, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I was like, well, what am I going to do now in
Work
the
on the
next
next
month?
thing.
I mean, but it just, I'm so used to working on it up to the last second that I was kind of like, what do I do? Like that actually kind of caught me by surprise. And I honestly felt weird. I was like, I've never felt this before. And I guess I'm really lucky. I know you have a very supportive and amazing partner, and so do I. And my partner, scarily enough, is maybe a bigger procrastinator than me. So she never gives me a hard time. She supports me. And I do the same thing with her own work. I'm up all night with her at last minute so she can get something turned in. And so fortunately, we really understand one another and we don't give each other a hard time. We just go, well, got away with it again. I guess I'm not going to change my ways.
Yeah, we made it. Well, and again, that's the point. You and I could stand up in front of people and both hold up the last book we wrote and say, we made this. And our processes are completely different. Our brains are completely
Mhm.
different. We come from different countries. There's lots of things that are different. And yet we both made a book. And so hopefully that encourages people. You don't have to do anything that we're telling you or anyone else tells you. But if you want to be an author, at some point, you have to produce a book.
Exactly. As Brian in the classic Monty Python film says, it gets them to say, yes, we are all different and embrace that difference. I think that's such a powerful reminder that there is no one process for getting anything done.
No, exactly. Well, I also wanted, given that we did co-write The Relaxed Author back in 2021, and we
Wow.
did that because we had another show and we were talking and we said, oh, everyone's stressed and the anxiety levels are really high, and we think that there is a better path. And so we co-wrote The Relaxed Author, which is still, I think, a very good book. And I think,
Oh,
definitely
yeah.
people should get it. But interestingly, I think the stress and anxiety might actually be higher now
Oh, are
than
you
it
kidding? Oh,
than it
yeah.
was. So, yeah, so what do you think the main stresses are in the community now? And also, you see a lot with Draft to Digital, I guess, as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, Joe, I'm so glad we wrote that book because I actually pick it up every once in a while to remind myself of the things we tried to help other. Because again, it's therapy for me as well. So I'm so glad we did it. No, I think we're 10, if not 100 times more stressed with the world events and things that are going on, the divisiveness, not just in the world in general and politics and everything else, but the divisiveness in the author community, like the witch hunting that happens,
Mm.
of people trying to tear down other authors, either because they're successful or because, oh my God, you dared use a new technology. Like all of these things are happening and everyone's at one another's throats. I need to pick a book up and reread it. I I think we're a lot more stressed. I'm a lot more stressed than I was. I'm just getting over shingles, which is
Oh, which is
yeah.
actually related to stress as well,
It
isn't it?
is,
Yeah.
yeah. I was in LA for Writers of the Future. I'm a judge for the that science fiction fantasy conference. I went right from LA, like a week in LA, which is a phenomenal experience getting to mentor the winners. And I mean, come on, it's a free trip to Hollywood and hanging out with Kevin Anderson and having beers and stuff like that. And I come back to the Toronto Indie Author Con run by Tao Wong in Toronto here. And I went right from the airport, didn't even go home. I went right from the airport to the hotel because I kicked into another conference and I had been carrying, because we did a display on how to set up a in-person booth. And so I wasn't able to, I ended up having to carry hand bomb blocks down the street from where I was parked. And so my chest was really sore when I got home on the Monday. And I thought it was because I hadn't used these muscles because I'm not in the best shape. And then I took my shirt off and went, oh, there's a rash there. And Liz goes, you have shingles. Because the pain in my chest I thought was the muscle, but it was actually the
Mm.
underneath. So yeah, I mean, and I'm one of those lucky people that it's taken the full 5 weeks and I'm still in pain even afterwards. So again, public notice, if you're an older person like me and there's a vaccine available for shingles, you
Yeah.
may want to consider it because I would,
Get it.
yeah. Oh my God, it hurts. So, but yeah, so yeah, the stress I think is higher, even though I didn't know I was feeling it. Like it was happy stress, right? Like I was stressed out
Mm.
because I'm there in Hollywood and helping people and doing some good things. And then I'm doing the same thing and interacting with some amazing authors at the Toronto Indie Author Con. I didn't feel anxious stress. I was happy stress. Is that a thing?
I think you possibly your physical body masks stress, like physical stress, because you enjoy all of that stuff. Whereas someone like me,
Yeah.
I will feel I will feel it quicker and withdraw. Although I say that back in probably a decade ago, Jonathan would say to me, you're going too fast and you're going to hit the wall. And when you hit the wall, it's not going to be fun. And I did hit the wall. And then I think probably that 2021, I mean, that was when I just started going into menopause. Obviously, we had the pandemic and I wrote a pilgrimage and I was doing all those walks. And I think that actually really helped me. I learned a lot about maybe stopping that before it happened. And Becca Syme talks a lot about this.
Yes.
But I find it interesting with you because I think you're so positively happy in these events you do that it might mask your physical symptoms in a different way. But that's really hard to watch out for. But I will give a tip to you and everyone else listening, which is schedule the calendar and look at your calendar and go, I can't go back to back to back. I have to put in some rest days.
Well, thank you. Joe, you and Becca Syme are two of my best unpaid therapists. I appreciate that.
You just don't listen, Mark.
Sometimes I do.
But no, I think just coming back on the community and like you said, the divisiveness that there is over like primarily AI at the moment, I think is one of the biggest things, and this arbitrary things as to what you're allowed to use it for and what you're not allowed to use it for, which is just kind of crazy. And obviously, I've opted out of that whole discussion now, but how do you think we can move through this, move on? Because obviously we remember when it was trad versus indie, and then it was wide versus KU, and this will pass. It's hard when you're in it to know when it might pass.
Yeah, I think the advice that's more generic for whatever may come, whatever has come, is why are you doing this? Why are you a writer? Heads down, focus on what gives you pleasure, and do that. Because everything else is noise. All the marketing tactics and strategies and all the people yelling at one another and stuff like that. Write your books. Do the things that motivate you. Do the things that give you that intrinsic reward. And it's hard to ignore. I get it. It is hard to ignore. I have difficulty ignoring the haters and the yelling and the screaming that happens, but I do my best. Like this morning when I was in the throes of my manuscript and I looked up and went, oh my God, I've got to shower. I'm going to be talking to Joe soon. I should comb my hair, which I have none, that kind of thing, because I was so in my book that everything else melted away. And that's such, for me as a storyteller, as a writer, that's one of the most beautiful places for me to be.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I have a little thing that pops up in my calendar sometimes, which says, if you're feeling all of these things, just go create something. And the moment you refocus on creation and whatever that means to you, things change. It changes the energy. You just feel like that, or go for a walk. That's my other tip.
Oh, and I have
outside.
To say, Joe, Pilgrimage, by the way, I still, it's one of the most profound and powerful books that you've written. And you've written a lot of amazing ones.
Oh,
that one really
sweet.
resonates, not just for me, but with Liz. Because one of the things we often do when we get stressed is a walk, ideally in nature, the vitamin N. But I think there's something really profound in that. And that really helps me a lot. And again, sometimes going for a walk, listening to your podcast or listening to an audiobook, or sometimes just attending to the environment. A tip I picked up from Brooklyn author Dennis Hamill years ago was go for a walk with your character. And listen to what they see and what do they comment on. How do they approach this environment that you've seen a million times? How do they see it? What do they notice that you don't notice? And that's such an incredible experience of creativity when you're not writing, but writing. That really helps me a lot.
Oh, nice one. Okay, so your latest book is Stark Realities, but you have so many more. So where can people find you and your books and your podcast online?
Joe, you can find everything you want to know about me and stuff you don't want to know about me over at markleslie.ca. Links to all the other places from there.
Brilliant. Well, thanks again for your time, Mark. That was great.
Thanks so much, Joe. Bye-bye.
I hope you found the interview with Mark interesting and encouraging for you, whatever your level of book sales and experience. Let me know what resonated from the interview or the introduction, and let me know your answer to this week's question: who do you serve and how does your book serve them? Please leave a comment on the podcast show notes at thecreativepenn.com or on the YouTube channel, or email me, joanna@thecreativepenn.com. And please send me pictures of where you're listening or your favourite cemetery or churchyard. Next Monday, I'm talking about writing the hard stuff, turning difficult subjects into meaningful prose with Nicole Walker. So happy writing, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you found it helpful. You can find the backlist episodes and show notes at thecreativepenn.com/podcast. And you can get your free author blueprint at thecreativepenn.com/blueprint. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on Facebook and X at The Creative Penn, or on Instagram and Facebook at JFPennAuthor. Happy writing, and I'll see you next time.